easy to look at on paper. So while Brenna's passing that out, I'll just say that I think Brenna has done a nice job of queuing this up. We'll go through some purpose, and like a summary of what you're about to hear. We thought it would be helpful for all of you guys. Sorry, Erin, can you hear me okay? Yep, okay. We just thought it would be helpful for you guys to go through what are the various ways that districts structure ballot measures in order to raise revenue? How have other districts done it? What are the various options that are available? I want to make it really clear because I know there are a lot of stakeholders who are worried about not being part of this process. This is not about what we would raise money for. This is intended to be sort of a study and dialogue with you guys to help all board members get on the same page and understand what are the different approaches the district could take. And also obviously not contemplating what board direction might be in terms of which type of measure you all want us to start thinking about and looking at. So with that, I'll jump back in on this purpose slide, but I just want to put it what your process is about.
Yeah. And Erin, I just passed around 2 attachments, both of which are on the board docs agenda item and as attachments, so you can access them online there. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We have a lot to cover. No, I don't think it's gonna work because it's not slide. Oh, yeah, sorry. No, sorry. Let me just do a little scroll for you.
I can scroll too, Kristen, if you feel like you need something else. Well, good. Okay, proficient scroller.
Are you? Well,
I am as well. We'll handle it.
Okay. Do you want to take?
Yeah, I do, like, again, just to reiterate, I want you to know, and I want everybody who's listening, but not a lot of people are here, to know we are studying financial structures that the district can consider. We are not picking a financial structure, and we are certainly not contemplating what, as Craig said, the ballot measure will say we will put the money toward. That is not what today is about. We also want to propose to the board some next steps and get your feedback on those next steps and your direction. So with that, then the collaboration sort of would begin, right, with probably many other people, and we would be giving a lot of thought and attention to that. So that's what we need from you today, like be present and learn about what different options are available to us. Think about what next steps we're proposing, and then give us some feedback on those next steps and give us some direction to head on it. That's today.
So content, there is a lot of content, and so let's just reorient. I'm going to do some background information first, just on the levy types, what are the limits and what are the terms and all that. Then I'm going to talk about our current and potential future revenue. Then I'm going to talk about the structure of a ballot question, and that'll be heavy into one of the handouts I just gave. And then potential cost to an average homeowner, not of a specific ballot initiative, but in general, what do we think 1 mil costs, for example, and out in the future. Okay, so that's that part. Here's your handouts. I didn't give you yet the 2018 historic thing because I want to do that last. It's really just point of reference. It's actual materials I found in an actual file in my office. So I don't have the PDF of it, but I can scan it to PDF because I only have the hard copy. So I ran some copies of that just because I thought it was interesting. Scrapbook stuff. Okay, next. So what is a mill levy override and what are the different manifestations? So it can be stated in terms of many things. You can state just a specific dollar amount you want to raise. You can say, we want to raise this dollar amount plus inflation. You can say, hey, we want you to give us this many mills. That means that. And that's it in perpetuity. Or not. You could say, we want you to give us 1 mill today and 2 mills tomorrow. People have done this. Or you could say, I'm just saying, we want you to give us a number of mills that actually auto-adjust over time in order to max out some defined limit in state statute. So, yes.
You define a mill.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a percentage, it's just a rate.
That's a great question.
When we say number of mills,
Yes,
what is
the unit
what
of?
does it mean?
What, it's a taxation rate. Right, so it's 1/1000th of your value.
So it's specific, so it's not about anything, it's like
It's 1/1000th of a value, right? Yeah.
Of what value?
Well, it depends, right? So if it's the mill levy dollar, the mills are calculated on that dollar amount. So like the mill we have in 25 million, we calculate the mills for. Or it could be the mills that we have, it's 27 mills.
Wait, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, I'm just saying that.
1/1000th is of your assessed value.
Oh, it's
Okay.
an AV.
Okay.
The mill is applied to assessed value of a property. Assessed value is not your market value.
That's whatever.
Market value is this big number reduced down to 7%-ish. That's your assessed value, and then the mill is 1/1000th of that.
So,
I feel like I'm.
no, that's fine. A mill makes sense, because mill is.
It says it on your little statement.
That was school budget on 101 and it has to be
Oh.
first year.
Yes,
Right.
it's French.
Yeah.
Yes,
No,
France came up with this system.
I mean, it's metric.
I'm gonna start saying it with the French comes from that.
That's, so if we were to have a number of mills, it could be 3 mills, which would be 3,000s.
Correct.
I mean, okay, you're
So
assessed.
$3 for every $1,000 of your assessed.
Right.
That's fascinating.
That's very, that is
As usual, as usual, right to
The
the
one who
essence.
doesn't understand math has to figure out, how do I understand?
You put it into language.
But you know what?
Okay.
That's,
All right, let's keep going on types of overrides. Colorado law allows for what's called like a general purpose mill levy override. We've often spent time together talking about this one. And actually, we've won one of these, but use is very, very flexible. It is capped at 25% of our total program, which moves each year, right? Total program is moving up, it's actually moving down next year. Our cap moves with it, plus a small dollar amount. The small dollar amount is this weirdo adjustment from 2001 to, that is $14 million. It's a set value that's always going to be $14 million. I don't know what to say. There are just moments when legislators do weird stuff. Sorry.
it's 25% of the assessed value.
Plus 14 million.
Plus 14 million.
Wait, of the assessed value?
No,
or of the
25%
budget?
of total program.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
got it, sorry, okay.
Not the budget, total program. Remember, total program is just 3/4.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. It's me just doing a pie chart.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that
I'm
was very.
so
An
sorry.
interpretive dance.
I apologize. Surprise. I'm really tired. And generally it's perpetual, although Craig did show you a couple examples where, in more tax averse places, sometimes they'll time limit themselves. They certainly don't have to, but they do. So then there's this separate category, I'm sorry. I'll teach you a bit more than you. There are these special purpose mills, and I'll talk through, there's more than one type, that are use restricted. They also don't have caps, and they also can be perpetual, although again, sometimes people will limit themselves. And then, even though I know we talk about bonds as if they're different, they actually are still a mill levy override because they are assessed in mills and they are an override to our base 27 mills that taxpayers must contribute towards public education by law, right? So they still exist by virtue of a mill levy override approval. Yes.
And I have a question. I thought bonds were totally separate. It was permission to borrow money, and that other investors, other people say, yeah, we're gonna buy into it, you're a good bet.
Two truths. You're 100% right, and I'm 100% right. So.
Tell me how they both.
Sure. So the taxpayer is giving us authorization to enter into a multi-year debt structure. And they are giving us the money to service the debt.
Okay, so
The money to service the debt is a mill levy override. The permission to borrow is the permission to borrow, but they are repaying our loan through the mills.
Okay.
Got it? It's still an override.
Because I know there's an idea out there that bonds don't cost, homeowner money. They're just letting you.
You know, I'm fine for some people to believe. It's still a mill. I'll show you more about that.
Let's keep going.
No, let's not.
So one more, if something is set up to be perpetual, what would have to change to stop it? Or does it literally go on forever? Like,
Forever.
could we say, we can stop this bond now, or this mill now, or does it just go?
Well, technically, you have us, Julie's not here, you have us, so remember December, I come to you guys every time and you certify. You could say, we don't wanna certify the full amount that we could certify. You could do that. Do you remember when the governor was sort of saying, hey, local taxing authorities, you have the ability to make taxpayers' taxes not go up. Remember how annoying that was? Because it was like saying, taxpayers gave you permission to collect the money and then you're now not gonna. Strange. But yes, in
That's how
theory,
you could do it
if you wanted to undo it. Separately, you could run a separate ballot and say, please remove your permission for us to collect this. That'd be a strange
Yeah, I'm
ballot
just
to run,
curious.
but it could happen.
Perpetual sounds very, whatever. So,
Well, I think it's inspiring. It's a long-term commitment to public education. Okay, so general purpose bills. Erin, you good right now? Thumbs up. Thank you. Okay. So common uses, and we'll talk more, and we'll look at some sample languages again. Maintain and expand programs like CTE, arts, music, STEM, attract and retain teachers, support technology systems, equipment, and services, maintain and expand mental health. The key thing is statute in no way, shape, or form dictates that mills are either additive or not. This is not like federal funding. You know, sometimes federal funding is not allowed to supplant your local funding. It has to be additive to. This is not. In essence, you can use it towards stuff you're doing. There's no rule. Now, it may not be strategic to say, we're going to use it towards stuff we're doing. That's fine, but I'm just saying, like, the rules. These are the rules, okay? Max amount. In the current year, the total 25% of total program was $14 million is roughly $220. That is $65 million today more than what we are collecting every year. Okay, so that when we talk about what's our capacity to max this thing out, it's today $65 million. I'm going to show you a slide in a minute that will show you why that number will be smaller in the future, but for purposes of our conversation. And again, as total program grows or shrinks, the max amount grows and shrinks. And so
Even
even
if decline in enrollment and decline in funding.
so if total program is getting smaller, obviously 25% of it is a smaller number, et cetera. So even if voters had said to us, you can collect 15 mils from me in perpetuity, that cap applies no matter what. That cap could reduce that 15 mils to 14 to 13 to 12, whatever. Does that make sense? Okay.
without uncertified,
Correct.
just be open, that's
Correct.
I have a question when you say the uses in our language, ballot language will say what we want to use it for.
Yes.
How, if we got a big pot of money and we're gonna get in a portion of it.
Yep.
How would anybody know that we use that portion we added for what we said we were gonna use it for?
All we have to do is demonstrate that we spent some amount of money on what we said we would.
Some of
That's
it, not even more amount than last
You
year,
do not
just something.
need to track dollar for dollar, and it does not have to be more. Again, whatever promises we make, we can choose to make. And if we make certain promises, and I may do this, nonetheless, like, we can then try and back those up in perpetuity, but I wanna say again, your lawyers and your sample language will always give you some outs on these things because you don't know what the school district needs to do in 25 years. You don't. And so stuff that was milled for 25 years ago in perpetuity, we're not doing that anymore. And we shouldn't. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's talk about the special purpose. That was that middle category. These are two special purpose. There's a couple more, but those are esoteric and nuanced and uncommon. So I'm going to focus on these. Transportation. We could seek a special purpose override focused on transportation. It has to be in excess of the state's current support for our transportation. So the state currently gives us about $5 million a year towards transportation. We could mill for the remaining $27 million we spend on transportation, including our bus fleet and all the things, if we wanted to. And that would represent about 1.8 mils for us. Basically, kind of in tomorrow's mill value, but nonetheless. Okay, capital and technology, they're grouped together, and actually it's even more than that, but I'm simplifying. Capital defined broadly, and technology. Systems, people, certain types of people who maintain the systems. Again, with capital, certain types of people who build the capital. It's a broad definition of capital. This particular version of a special purpose mill is sometimes referred to as debt-free schools. In the subsequent slide, I'll tell you why I suggest we don't refer to it that way, but it's just my suggestion. Here's a couple examples. So if the district, and I'm making stuff up here, this is not a budget, this is just structure and illustration. If the district invested 2% of the replacement value of facilities and FF&E, we would be spending about $70 million a year on just capital renewal. Okay, and I didn't make that up. I went and looked up what's a reasonable assumption of what you should be spending of the replacement value of facilities and FF&E. It actually is generally somewhere between 1.5 and 3.
And no district does that.
And the CAC has an on.
That's not true, actually.
The few districts are able to.
Aurora and Denver are both doing it, Cherry Creek, they are.
They pass these kinds of things.
They're spending more than that. And when we spent $850 million over 6 years, we spent more than that. So on average, if you look at all of our debt issuances and our capital reserve fund spends, we're spending more than that over time. So 4.6 mils is about 70 million in tomorrow's mill values. And then regular tech purchases and supporting staff average about 20 million per year currently. And this is excluding the 2018 MLO included some money for Tech for Ed. So kind of that's already tagged to something, so we wouldn't tag it again. So if we exclude that, the 25 is net of that special purpose money that's already tagged for Tech for Ed. Again, we can put these together, we can do the whole thing together. This is just structural, this is not a recommendation. These figures are district share only, they need to be grossed up to account for charter sharing. So I'll show you that in a few other slides in different dollar amounts, but as you're looking at these figures, keep it contextualized, but this is a portion. Is that actually? Yeah, that's right, this is a portion. So again, and I'm calling it the general obligation bond levy because it is still a levy and it's an override. We could do a mill levy dedicated to servicing general obligation bonds. Again, lots of different things can be purchased with them, including capital and technology. And some other stuff too, safety and security, all kinds of different equipment. By the way, safety and security equipment could absolutely be part of that special purpose mill. Capital is defined very broadly, okay? So all these types of things. Max amounts, there is a max debt limit for the district. It has to do with state statute and not wanting us to get upside down. It's quite high, and honestly, it's published in our act for every year. What is our debt limit and how close are we? We're well below the 50% mark on our debt limit, just so you know. And then again, the bond itself is repaid over a period of 20 years.
So that levy is, sorry, the levy associated with that bond would have. Yes.
Yes, and I'm gonna show you that in a minute.
And, debt service. That, if you go, you know, scroll back up one page. That the capital and technology ability override would be money you could raise a year and invest in a year, right? Versus going out for general obligation bonds, which is debt service, paying it back. I don't know how much we're gonna pay back on that. It's gonna be over $1 billion.
2 billion. You borrow $1 billion, you pay back 2.
Right? So that's the benefit of this special purpose MLO, is the amount of money that you save on your debt service.
Yeah, it's putting each taxpayer, the full value of the taxpayer's dollars directly into our buildings instead of in the pockets of the bank.
On those special ones, are those done on ballots as separate initiatives, or would that be like one initiative that could include these as some parts of it?
So statutorily, there's 2 different sections of statute that define a transportation override versus the capital, a supplemental capital and technology versus the bond. So those 3 things have to be separate from one another because you're referencing the part of statute that enables you. Okay, you can have on one ballot for us, and it's not representative people, you can have an A and B that are separate from each
They
other.
would be voted, like the voter would vote for A and then
That's right, that's right. And again, later in my deck, I'll, you know, we spoke briefly about Adams 12, they did do a bond and an override, and maybe structured the bond passed, the override did not. And so that can happen, usually it doesn't. But
what part do you do that if they don't pass together?
usually it doesn't split. Usually if one goes, the other goes.
Okay.
And I say usually, I mean, it's still like, you're gonna find examples when that doesn't happen.
Is it uncommon to have babies on the ballot?
It's uncommon to have a C. It's very common to do an AB.
I feel like Jeffco's almost always had. And I
So
swear
they're
there
no
was one year where one passed and the other didn't.
And again, when I give you the 2018 stuff, you'll see what was the A and the B
Oh, yeah.
from that year. Anyway.
In 2018, did we pass a mill or just a bond? I feel like
Both.
Oh, we did pass one.
It's the only one type to include.
Okay.
That's the one that goes up.
Oh, good. So now we're gonna look at our stuff. Okay, so you've seen this before. It's in some of our public documents. This is a color-coded chart where you're looking at each ballot initiative. So voters have approved an override in 99, 2002-3. The reason there was an escalation clause in that one was an example of will you give us more if. Before 12 and 18. So effectively, it's 5 ballots, right?
Yeah.
And they all still exist. And then the dollar amounts are shown here, okay? Now we've pulled charter share to a gray bar at the top. We want the total collection to match our certification. So when you guys sign that paper in December, you certified for the current year a number very close to this. This is also probably net of our uncollectibles, the 154. The total is net of uncollectibles? No, okay. Nonetheless, through overrides, this is what you said you intended to collect for everyone, and then we give charter some, and then the rest of this is sparse. Does that make sense? In the stack? Okay. Yeah, I think I got it. Okay, I'm sorry.
Just processing.
I am.
Scrunchy face.
Okay. All right, next. So again, we had talked about how what we're currently collecting is not our full capacity for law. So, this now shows existing collections as green, capacity as orange, meaning law says we could collect, that we could ask for permission to collect, and it says we can collect that much more. And here I'm showing you, of total capacity, what are the dollar figures over time? And this is where you're seeing that our existing, even though only one of them is increasing by inflation, right? It's going up about $1 million a year of the total And then the capacity amount, the dollar value of that which would max us out is varied. Because total program is varying. And so behind here have to be assumptions about funding count, right? All those things. And so all these numbers I've done on the slide are going to be wrong in approximately 5 minutes. And so I apologize for that, but they will, these are approximate, right? Like think of it as a range of values because so many different things that I can't control or foresee will change some of this.
And this does include the charter share.
Yes.
So that the total amount of that orange piece of the pie that would come to the district is less.
Yeah, exactly.
So we share, obviously share the charters.
But they're still
Oh,
paying
57,
taxes.
there it is.
But they're still paying taxes, it's not like they're not.
Of course, yeah.
Oh, yeah, their families are.
At one point in time, there was this question, like in the early days of charters, there was this question of like, do we have to share? I think that's largely gone, like charter schools are public
They're
schools
public
that serve our
Their
students.
parents are paying.
Yes, and the
Their
parents
parents are paying taxes and yes. But I do remember when that was a thing, that's how old I am.
Okay. And then these are some more specific numbers. Right now, to collect this many dollars, the green, we're not collecting orange. We assess 11.37 mils. Each of them is worth about 13.7 million in collections. Right now we're at 18.7. Max is 25% plus 14. Yeah, okay, that's everything on this side. Okay, now, this is where we're gonna refer to our handout. A question, so structurally, I alluded at the beginning, that mills, these things can be stated lots of different ways. And you can word it in such a way that in perpetuity it effectively maxes out your capacity. If we did this, we no longer care that those overrides we passed don't adjust with inflation. We don't need to worry about that ever again. Say that again. Because our total program is only ever going to go up by legislative mandate or inflation. But as it's moving, it's a total number and it's going to move up and down. If we have a thing
It says just max it out.
that
Doesn't
just
matter.
says max it out,
It's just gonna be that
as
feedback.
if total program increases by inflation, then this little guy does whatever it takes to make our total override collection move up by the same
And
amount.
good
Does that
news
make
for
sense?
voters, if it goes down,
If it goes down, it goes down. Absolutely. Absolutely. So if our enrollment continues to go down, again, voters are only paying for the kids we serve, the total program. It's like,
That seems like really important messaging.
I think so.
Because I think people are like, oh, like, we go into but you're asking people money, so that's good.
I think this is I actually think this is a really interesting concept to consider and think about what kind of language could explain this in a way that helps people understand. If our enrollment drops, then it drops. If it goes up, it goes up. And it just gets us on par with neighboring districts that have also maximized, which is the Cherry Creek language, I think that.
So I was gonna ask, is that, do we have,
You have that.
10 seconds.
Is it here, Brenna?
okay, oh, yes, I'm
Read
sorry.
your hand out.
I was looking at one other thing. Okay, so Cherry Creek is on page 2. And just take a quick sec to read it. If you don't mind, just because it'll. It may be my fault, but I'm, in these words that I know, sorry, I was in the Okay, and so you're both seeing at the outset, that first sentence, is kind of the thing, right? Where you say, and by other amounts in subsequent years, up to the limit established for the district by 752, 54, 108, 3, 6, 1.6. That's the part that defines the max. Right?
Is that representative to Jeffco? Like this
No.
type of structure?
But many other districts have done it and passed it, and, I'll be blunt, I'm not making recommendations, but it would seem silly not to try this way. Honestly.
I mean, well, especially given the way that our previous quality overrides have been structured.
Well,
Mary, this is an
never have to
option.
Go for an MLO again.
No, there's lots of different types of overrides, right? So there's special purpose overrides,
Yeah.
there's bond overrides, there's
But this
We
would
would
match
not-
up with general.
the
God,
general
yeah.
purpose one, but
Okay,
there
try
are
to
other
explain
ones.
it to me, and go ahead, go ahead.
Please.
Yeah, let's go backwards, maybe one slide.
So.
Yeah.
Alright, this is a test, Brenna, test me. Okay, so effectively, the mills that we are collecting right now is the wind farms. We have a maximum per law, 25% of the total program that we could collect, but 14 million. That's the orange bars. So one thing that Cherry Creek did in this language is they said, basically let us collect up to the maximum allowed by law, because that follows inflation, right? So if our enrollment declines, the total program declines, as inflation declines, that will decline.
It goes up, it goes
It
up.
goes up. But it is
Backfills to the max
back
for
first.
everything.
So I get the max, and that would make me feel good as a taxpayer, but by such amount or whatever, by other amounts in subsequent years, I would say, what? You know, because it's flexible. So, like, I understand,
Yeah, but
I
that's not our-
understand the explanation, I'm just saying, I'm just Joe Blow taxpayer, and I never had this, and
I'd be like, what's the max?
I would like to know what the max is, and I would also know
Well,
by other amounts.
We have people who can help us with this ballot language. Brenna, will help with ballot language, obviously.
And we're not
a good
deciding.
portion of what's gonna matter is both that beginning statement as well as what's highlighted at the bottom for what we're gonna use it for. So I do think we'll get to that point, but we wanna get through this so you can see kind of what the different options might look like. Cause there are different ones that are a little bit more specific too. So let's move on.
Yes. There are almost infinite structures and different ask amounts that we could do in lieu of what I call the expanded pledge. That's my shorthand for that structure. It could be the contracting pledge, it's expanding. We could do a set number of mills, for example, 2 or 3. I think the 2018 override was approximately 2 mills-ish. This might grow over time and max out capacity, if we did reach capacity in a future year, there are some places that in the ballot say 2 mills in the current year and 3 mills in the next year or something. I've seen it a couple of times. And then we could just do a set dollar amount increased by inflation. That would not be as flexible, in terms of adjusting to future environments as what we're talking about. These are all options, yes.
And when you talk about future environment, so like say we had, declining enrollment continuous and kept going down. And so the amount that we get goes down.
Mhm.
And so then calculating the number of mills we have is going down,
That's right, and it has been.
right? And so the state, that limits the max that we should have with that.
Yep.
Then we could go back, in theory, and ask for, and never go back.
Not for this one. If we're at capacity for this one, that's it. Doesn't matter if our total program is shrunk or whatever. Capacity is always for us in perpetuity, 25% of total program plus 14 million. Total program goes up, that amount goes up. Total program goes down, that amount goes down. Doesn't matter. That's
So how do you compare districts when we look at ourselves against Cherry Creek and Golden, whatever, and say, look, they're way up at this number of mills and we're at this number of mills?
So I want to point out that it's really important not to compare necessarily numbers of mills. In a statewide analysis, we are among the top 10 or 15% in terms of number of mills of overrides. We are among the haves. Okay. Now, the question starts to be, and what Brian and I think about, because I think what's reasonable is, how much money do we need per kiddo? And it's entirely appropriate to compare per kiddo amounts. You'll get lost in the weeds of, because different assessed values equate to different numbers of mills to raise the same number of dollars, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's all. The great news is we have a fairly large tax basis. So each person doesn't have to contribute very much in order for us to have more money for kiddos. Okay, so it's like the cost to the per person is lower in Jeffco than in many of our neighboring districts. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, this is a Part B, so option. So again, if we think about a two-part ballot, we have a Part A and a Part B. One option for Part B. Well, there's infinite options for both. You could, there's no limit. But anyway, if in fact we decided on something like a general purpose override as the Part A, Part B then has additional options. One of which could be the supplemental capital and technology MLO. There's really a unique feature here, and so I want you to flip to Aurora first. So Craig mentioned that Aurora passed the largest bond for debt for capital. So they passed a $1 billion bond at the same time as passing a capital construction override.
Can you say that again? Sorry.
They had a AB structure. They passed an enormous bond, $1 billion, and they passed an override specific to capital.
And
Yeah, a few months ago. So read their question, and then I'll talk a little bit more about this language. Yes, please. Question for Aurora. Okay. Yes. I'm sorry.
when you have capital construction for quality teachers, doesn't
I just want to keep working on this concept. So again, and Pooter is the same way. You can read Pooter's question. It's a very similar structure. So, the point is, two things can be true at the same time. These funds will go directly in to a capital construction fund, and that will include technology and all kinds of stuff, and safety and security equipment, FF&E, all kinds of stuff. That is true. And what it does for the school district is frees up dollars to go towards things on the program side, on the operating side, on the annual budget side. And so we sort of
kind of like the account transfer.
yes, if it still exists by the time we go to the ballot, yes.
How else would it go? We don't have to talk.
Yeah. So I just want to say, like, it is, both things are true. It is true that it is freeing up money to go towards quality teachers, mental health, career, skill trades, because we're taking dollars out of our general fund and spending it on capital.
We're doing, last year we did
And
30
it's dead.
million, right? Each year we're doing like about 30 million. So it would then free up that 30 million to not need to be transferred and could go towards things like
Right. Or more, because remember, this is tech too. So a big chunk of IT's budget could go.
depending upon how much we believe we could raise with this.
Totally, no, I'm just saying hypothetically.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to recommend.
Yeah, no.
I'm curious as that this one grows with assessed value. So,
So does the other.
okay, so does that mean the assessed value of my property, not inflation?
So one other thing to just remember in general, I know we talk a lot about homeowners. The primary tax burden, I know, a lot of this is actually businesses whose assessed value is 27% of their actual value, roughly. So we spend a lot of time thinking about the residential. The bulk of the money is coming from business. Right. But anyway, both of these structures are passing a capital construction and technology override. And the lead language is all about teachers, mental health, skilled trades, career tech. And it is true. It is not a lie. It is not trying to pull the wool over anyone. None of that. It is true. Does that make sense?
That's why they have to reference the general fund, right? Because it protects the general fund revenue from having to go
into programming for kids and staff. And the other thing I would just say is it also then, I mean, this type of structure helps the district later on down the road in these constant, like every decade, passing an $800 million bond that then you're paying double on with debt service. And so this sets the district up to collect the funds and put 100% of every dollar, as Brenna said earlier, into the students that we're serving today, instead of 50% of it into the learning environments we're trying to create for kids and staff and families, and 50% of it into bank services. It's a much smarter way to sort of generate revenue if your electorate is willing to sort of seek to understand and then go there with you.
And they have a very, well, I don't know, I tend to like to be optimistic. I see a lot of evidence that in this general metro area, there's a strong appetite for this. Because again, you're stating the primary purpose is kiddos, paid for out of general fund, and then these dollars, yes, they're going towards capital and technology and FF&E, so that your general fund can really focus on classrooms.
I feel like it's kind of how I remodeled my house. Like each year, right? This $5,000 will take care of this issue, but then these 15 other issues aren't going to get taken care of. But then the next year, this $5,000 will take care of this issue. And instead of like, I'm taking out a $500,000 loan to redo my whole house all at once. You know, I mean,
Well, and at the cap, I mean,
it's just people can understand it. Yeah, people can understand it.
there's a ton of information, documentation about where that capital dollars are going. So we have got a lot of that.
And so, real quick note, I mentioned at the beginning that I was gonna come back to this around why people stop using debt-free schools. For a minute, it was sexy language. But then, for example, Aurora, who's coming to the ballot with $1 billion in debt and a debt-free schools act, seems weird, right?
It does seem odd.
And so, that doesn't make any sense. Right? So, let's not use that language, because we already have outstanding debt. And we may need debt in the future. Debt is helpful in a moment when you need a lot of money right now. And then it's maybe worth paying the interest and all the things. But if what you need is some money every year, you don't necessarily need it all up front, right? Like, so a district that's growing and needs to build a high school and a middle school and an elementary is probably gonna need debt, because each one of them is really expensive. You need it up front. But
The other example, can I jump in on a different example?
please.
I know for a fact that based on our boundary study and the work that we just started with the strategic capital plan, that we are going to have a section where we talk about tear down of multiple schools and rebuild maybe one, especially on the eastern border of our district where our schools are aging. If this were to be something that this board or a future board wanted to sort of engage in, you don't ever want to put a board in a position where you're like, well, we're supposed to be debt free. And what they really need to do is leverage something like a COP to be able to make good on a promise that's in a strategic capital plan that building would still operate, right? So that's why I think Brenna's cautioning it's this language of debt-free schools, because you don't want to unintentionally set an expectation to the public that the district will never need to access it again.
I think it's just
not realistic.
It's disingenuous. And then I am exploring whether some version of this could include a language like without increasing taxes. Now, this is a very, very detailed language thing. it's probably too, well, I'm not ready to give you all the different moving pieces of that, but I am looking at it. That makes sense. Okay, let's keep going. Transportation, again, this could be part of our Part B. We've talked some about this already, so I think I can keep going. Oh, I did want to flag, again, it can be any of these services, and it's less clear to me how charter share works on this. Because if voters are saying, we're approving transportation, and we're just handing a set amount of money to a charter who doesn't provide transportation, it gets weird, and so I'll be honest, we can research it if this becomes the thing that we all want to do. We can figure something out, but it will probably need to be signaled in our ballot language, whatever it is, in terms of sharing with charters and tracking whether they're actually spending.
Well, especially in a scenario where we could say, we could free up general fund money that can also support charters. And so how does construction, I guess, work? We have to use their portion for construction there, so it's.
Yes, they need to deposit in their capital reserve fund. Those override receipts, same deal. We pass it through to them, they gotta stick it in their capital reserve fund, which they have.
Which they have, absolutely.
And they have ongoing needs, just like we do for technology, for buildings,
Security,
for all the things. Equipment, classroom furniture, okay, let's keep going. Okay, lastly, the bonds. So I've come back around, and the next slide I'll show you a stack of our debt service, our annual debt service. We could go for a bond. Again, I'm just trying to lay out all the options. We could seek anywhere from about 200 million to 500 million in one-time funding, and use potentially, without increasing taxes or tax rate language, subject to legal review and interpretation. There's a lot of moving pieces there, and so, but again, we could also potentially use that language to pass an ongoing override instead of a bond. I know that's confusing, but net district share would be one of these amounts. That's the par value potentially, and I'm not trying to estimate premium. We would absolutely do that. We would be very transparent. Like we're not gonna say we're only gonna raise this and then raise this. That's not the deal. But anyway, I'm just focused on par at the moment. The face value of the bonds.
When you go to sell them, you also make premium on top of the par. And did I say that right? And so we would assume that we make more than that, but that's why she's just noting it's par value.
With repayment costs between 400 and $1 billion. Again, that's the point. Is the voters giving us the debt service dollar, and they're having to give us $400 million so that we can get $200 million into our buildings. Now, it may be because we have an immediate need for $200 million in buildings. I get that. But again, if I was the voter, I would rather give us $1 and have all of the dollar go into the students' classroom. So that's fine. And I think there's some cool graphics, by the way, that we can do about that.
So I have a question. I understand pretty much the MLOs, the just mill of mills, and dollars associated with them. Yep. When we talked about my confusion of the bonds and that the taxpayers have to pay back the bond, if like we had in 2018 and interest rates were really high for a long time, so we made money just on the money that we sold in bonds, then what does that mean for what the taxpayer has to pay back?
Nothing.
Okay.
Just beneficial or
Okay.
not.
So,
Okay,
so it was good for us because we got more money and we could use it, we could spend it. But at what, and I understand for the mill levy, right, once it takes place, action, then taxpayers start paying it. Is it the same thing for bonds? They would see.
100%.
Okay, so they would see their little tax, all that
That's
stuff.
right. What we would certify in December would reflect whatever they approved in November, including debt. Now, it also means when you do debt measures, you're scurrying to issue it. So there was like $6 billion in debt on the 24 November ballots statewide, huge figure. And so, $1 million at Aurora, $950 million at Cherry Creek, $950 million at Denver. All that debt issuance all at the same time, all front loaded, because you only have 3 years to draw down most of the balance. You can stagger it like we did, right? We did an 18 and a 20. It creates, you flood the construction market with, hey, I need you to do this, I need you to do this, I need you to do this. The pricing you get is not as competitive because every school district is doing it all at the same time. So frankly, I'm glad we were not on the 24 ballot with debt. Now, I don't know what the 26 might look like, but I'm just saying there are some things that happen when everyone's trying to do it at the same time.
Yeah, because then you're because of the debt, you're racing the clock, right, to get the money spent, or else there's tax implications on that.
Right, so they were all like racing each other to actually issue and commit and sign on the bill. Oh my God, it's a mess. Okay, I just watched it from the sidelines. Okay, this is a slide prepared by our municipal advisor just to show you our existing debt and one feature of our existing debt. And that is our annual debt service for the current year. This is 25-26, this is 26-27. Steps down in 27-28. Okay. Or no, steps down. This is fiscal year end. I'm sorry. This is 24-25 and 25-26.
So that's next school year.
Yeah. So
So in November of 26.
no, it is.
It's
Yeah.
calendar.
I don't know.
We pay
We'll
it.
find out. Between 26 and 27, it steps down by 6.6. It must be calendar year because the principal retirements are always in December. Okay. So we would be retiring principal in December of 26, such that the 27 amounts are, ongoing debt service is less. So this is what creates this, like, we're assessing about 5.9 mils to service this debt today. And we don't need that many here. This is part of a feature of without increasing taxes. So at that point, you're saying without increasing the number of mils, which is just great, can we do this, and this, issue new debt, or issue an ongoing override? It doesn't have to be debt, so we use that same language in lots of different structures. Yes,
So that's how we can do it without increasing that.
that's part of the puzzle. The whole reason it's a 200 to 500 million range is there's a different part of the puzzle, which is exceptionally complicated. Okay, next. Thank you so much.
Sorry, no, it's not.
Okay, it's going. Erin, you with us? Are you listening to music? I just like
Have her head in her hands.
You've exasperated her, Brenna.
Oh, I exasperate
We always say
myself.
Brenna for the end.
Man, you really should have done.
Right? How, we should have started with that.
Okay, so here's, again, two-part question, our 2018, and I'll go ahead and pass this out, which is the thing I have in print form only, but I will make sure it gets uploaded to Board Docs by scanning. I just, it's so funny, I had a sub-secretary working for me, and she's like, I found this in the folders. I was like, oh, that's helpful. Okay. So again, only Adams 12 had a split passage in November 24. So our 26 could look like some general purpose override, and then a Part B, which could be any one of these three. And we did do an AE structure with an MLO and a bond. And one thing I would note on the orange page, where it says, what's the tax impact? So see where it says $210 per month? So yeah, that's times 12, that's $24 a year.
Or 6,000.
That's right. And so again, like because mills are in these 1,000 increments, you can basically figure out at that point that this was about 2.4-ish, 2.5 mils.
Yeah, assessed value, not what I could do. That's all right.
Yeah, not your actual value, right? So, I think that's right, actually, no. But the point is, like, we can state all these things, and actually the next slide, imagines, so, we've moved forward to 26, 27, and we've had to make certain assumptions about assessed value in Jeffco and the small slice of Broomfield, to then say, what is a mill worth? And we think a mill will be worth approximately, and it's not approximately, because we did my own.
That's today, right?
No, this is an
18.
No. Are you clear your?
No, you're right. I was talking about growth.
Oh, okay.
We thought you were like,
I thought you were
wrong.
This is 26, in 26, 27, so
Okay,
in the assessed value.
Yeah, we're moving off of this.
That we certify in 26 or 27 collection, we think one mill could be worth about $43 per house per year, or $3.56 a month. That's just me dividing that out by 12. So, like, again, order of magnitude, it's totally doable. 4 mills would be worth about $170 per year per household at this rate, or $14.24. So when we passed the 2018 for 500,000 K properties, the properties weren't worth as much. It was at $42 a month. Does that make sense? So voters said yes to $42 a month.
Well, that was more than one bill though.
For, oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's not bad. But I'm just saying, 4 mills.
Yeah.
Is only 14 a month. So again, we have tremendous, well, 42. Oh, is it? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, shoot. Between 10. I was so excited.
14, 24.
Yeah.
10, 15, sorry.
I was so excited.
It was
We were so
exciting.
good. It's very
Still,
exciting.
I mean,
Okay, but you understand.
Yeah, we get the point. I think we get the point.
The point is, we have tremendous property wealth in Jefferson County. And so when you actually spread it out across everyone, it doesn't, it's less expensive for each person.
Okay, how are we doing? And I think we're done. This.
Oh, so I wanted
I
to,
want them to see this.
yes, okay, so thank you.
I'll hand it.
We have
it. Oh, good.
I have extras.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I need one now.
Okay.
I don't know what I'm thinking.
Okay.
This is I think really interesting.
So I sampled 3 slides out of part of a package that Adam Straub put together to explain what they were doing this past November. And I did it in part because Adam Straub was right there with us in the mill levy override universe. And so they shared with voters these analyses showing that they currently collect less per student, and that because of the stuff that was on the ballot, if all these other places passed their stuff, the picture only got worse. And then they show closing the gap if they did pass the override. Now, these are fascinating numbers, and I think they resonate with us.
Yeah, they do. I mean, I think just the data here that they presented is really helpful. We have some of this in the presentation that renegade to our associations around benefits and revenue projections. So I just wanted you guys to have what the lease was published last year.
Totally.
And they did not pass their MLO, right?
Right. So
it's like people didn't care.
I do think it's
It's
possible.
not that they didn't care. It's just
We might not understand that.
I think it might. So it's one of the only overrides that didn't pass in the farm range in this metro area. It's possible that it doesn't resonate with people to simply say they get more money than we do. I'm just saying. It's compelling to us because we work in the books all the time. It might be more compelling to say, here's what we're gonna do with this money if you give it to us, and not kind of try to say, woe is me, I just, you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, it's possible. I don't know.
All these voters don't have kids, so that's really effective when you're like, my kid isn't voting as much as other kids, but when you're, you don't have kids right now, you're.
It's hard with the time enrollment and more people living in communities,
To me though, this is juxtaposing MLOs by district and teacher salaries by district. That, because we have so much less than other districts, this is why we pay so much less. And,
I just wanna, it is compelling, it's compelling to me. But I do wanna say two parts of the puzzle. One, we get so much more than about 80% of the state, 85%. So we need to be really careful when we say we get so much less, because it's really just who we compare it to. And so and there's a little bit of like a shaming factor or something like, well, you aren't giving us as much as these other district voters are giving the district. So I just want to suggest that it might be that we explore, I'm sure whoever is doing the thing, if we're going to do anything, they'll carefully look at different types of things and see what resonates. But Creek's passed, a relatively smallish mill to max their capacity, but a huge bond. And all they focus on was what they're going to do.
and what if instead of this, we gave examples of a school, an elementary school, middle school, high school. And if the pupil, we're not per student, to have some kind of testimonial, that the principal say, if I got, the extra money this mill levy override would give us, we could have staff for all the things that they're missing, we could have the full-time, we could have the full-time, whatever and whatever.
Yeah, so the last thing I would say is I do think in general, again, I'm the CFO, I am not the person who figures out what we should say. Obviously, if I say some weird things. I think voters like to know, what are you going to do with the money?
Right, and that's what I think with this, by school, you could say, if we're gonna get the extra care support, we could get the extra whatever.
And I want to point out that financially, what we need is money to keep doing what we're doing. So
let's just put it in perspective.
And
And we're gonna talk a lot more about this. I mean, we're gonna do the school-based investments at your March meeting. That board packet's ready today, I just approved it, thank you, it looks really good. And we talked at key initiatives, so right now we're trending kind of on point with budget to actuals. So that's looking like we'll be using 30 to 40 million of fund balance this year, which in a juxtaposed kind of strange sort of way is good news. Because we keep saying we're headed in that direction and we don't use it, right? We did a little bit and then, kind of broke even. Now we're saying, no, we actually are going to use a big chunk of it. I think that's likely coming true as we look at mid-year. You're going to get your second quarter update as well. And when you think about the revenue projections that you've seen, and we're going to talk about again in April, we're going to be down in revenue anywhere from 4 to 25 million. So if we just do nothing, we're going to use another 40 million next year. And that's not contemplating any priority investments that we might need to make around making our SROs whole or maintaining the current SROs and or doing STEP, which is about $7 million just for JCPA. So that's the point. That's what we're going to have a conversation around. Are you guys good with us moving forward and collaborating with various stakeholder groups to say, what do we want to prioritize if we do have additional revenue? And if we don't minimize and take care of reducing our expenditures right now, there will be nothing to invest in.
When you ask us that question, can you, I don't know if it's before we answer, but can you give us more information right now on who those stakeholder groups are and how we plan because I think that's, one of the areas where we get criticism, you know, of how we
Sure.
approach that
I think
part.
we have another slide.
Yeah, so the next steps is not me, although I.
It's the timeline
Do
that,
you wanna do these, or what do you?
yeah, me too.
I'm happy to do it. I mean, I think that part of what we were hoping for today, was a commitment from the board to engage with us in that discussion about how we wanna engage stakeholders, more specifically. But, you know, we did some preliminary work last school year to convene the alliance and have a report. We had at that point identified 3 areas: compensation, high school, reimagine, safe, secure learning environments. We got some good principles around that work, and we also determined we weren't gonna see funding in November 2024. So now, this school year, we have reviewed the ballot initiative outcomes and determined that 2026 looks like a viable year for us. We had decided to take the safe and secure learning environments and do some work with each of the existing district committees to look into some of those as sort of a trial run, to look into the work more deeply, and ask some questions of those committees around these investments, including we view the SRO investment in particular is going to hit our budget this coming year, because we've never paid for our SROs and we will be on the hook for half of the cost of those in partnership with our law enforcement agencies. So we are sort of here, so we're doing this work, we're going to conclude it when Jeff Pearson gives the presentation on EL 11, who will also be sharing with you the results of this work and some idea on costs for some of the things that were identified and some things that the committees we've been talking about, which is there's a question of like, what should the district be responsible for in terms of the costs around safe and secure learning environments, and what should schools be responsible for? And those are the kinds of questions we were asking the committee. So that will be introduced to you at the board meeting in June. And then we are here where we conducted the review of revenue mechanisms with you all. Tracy is going to do this with the associations in her meetings next month. And then we want to work to obtain board direction on seeking local funding in 2026. So that would look more like you all telling us, or us engaging in a collaborative discussion with you about what that stakeholder engagement would look like moving forward. So we don't have a bundled up like plan on that right now.
Well, we know, the way that keep going.
So, we will need to, in this coming school year, so we'll need to identify who we're gonna engage, and then we need to identify specific funding priorities, building on the alliance work, because we did a lot of work, we definitely used some of that, and work with stakeholders, get robust stakeholder input between August and December, in the fall. And then, we would begin conducting community presentation. This is going to be challenging from a timeline perspective a little bit, because I do think that this issue generally could become a campaign issue on the school board race campaigns. And so we won't have new board members, or we won't have seated board members until December. And so we'll be making some presentations, but it's kind of going to be a little bit of a busy space. And so, but we'd be ready to go after the school board election to start making presentations. And then we'll be finalizing the funding packages and choose a local revenue mechanism sometime between January and May in 2026. And then we're going to follow required election procedures, which basically requires that we'll have a new designated election official that will be the person who is also supporting the board. That's part of their job, if you learn how to do that. But there's a time when you have to notify the county that you intend. You could eventually say, no, we don't want to, we never refer something to the ballot, but there is a pretty strict timeline that you adhere to release.
Hold space for us.
Yeah, let the county know you're that whole thing. Then an external campaign committee is formed, sometime late spring, and the board votes to refer the issue to the ballot in early
26,
This
27,
is the August
which is like, yeah, I mean, Craig and I talked about it a little bit, and it can really be any time between June and August. There are a lot of, Brenna has some thoughts on it too. There are some strict requirements around communication and things. There's a lot of laws that kick in once you refer something to the ballot. So just in general, that's what we're looking for. We'll be looking for, work with the board on what you asked about, all around what the state of engagement looks like.
And for our associations, I shared with JCEA last week, maybe week before, I can't remember. Last week, that we were having this conversation with you today. And just so you know, they're very worried that we are like deciding what it's gonna pay for it. And that's why I tried really hard on the front end of this to say that's not what this is about. We've got to study like what are the mechanisms first and not talk about the content. Even though we have some information from the alliance work, we still have things have changed, right? So I just committed to them like in every monthly meeting that I have with JCEA leadership and Jeffco leadership and JCAA leadership going forward now that we've had this conversation with the board, that we would carve out time in those months to talk about 2026. And so next month we will do this presentation with them, all three groups, so that they're sort of in step with you guys and in step with where we are and coming to the table. At some point going into next fall, we would want to create like a cross-functional group that's actually working on this together.
Yeah,
We haven't done that work or put those structures in place because we're just here today with you, making sure that we're
and typically,
aligning to what the board wants to have happen next.
typically you would pick like 3 people also who maybe don't work for the district, be previous school board members, to help you run the stakeholder engagement, so that it is like truly it's collaborative. So the district has a say in it, the stakeholders have a say, and there's some folks who are also sort of third party, like that are kind of brokers like between on both sides. So that whether those people end up being like they know so much about the work, they end up being your co-chairs for the like an external campaign committee, or they just have they maybe have say relationships and credibility in the community that is helpful as we're seeking feedback on the package pieces. So that's something we'll want to talk about too in terms of like who that is.
I think that one thing that we need to spend time on is defining who stakeholders are.
Yes.
Because like, I think going and not asking people to come here for those meetings, so like going to Kiwanis and the Alps and existing groups, churches, or wherever, where people, especially who don't have any connection to schools or voters are, and hosting those meetings and not making those compared to, or using our district, I think our district committees have great input, but that's, and now it's very important.
Yeah, I mean, I think with conduct community presentation, it's hard to say now because, we don't know what the outcome of November will be. But it takes all of us. It's gonna take every single school board member, potentially previous school board members. It's going to take people who have been our partners in the community. When Tracy did the, we had pastors and other folks who we worked with. So it's going to be a huge collection of people to cover a district that spans 750 miles of geography and has communities with very different identities all across it. So yeah, absolutely, we need to spend some time on that piece.
There's no poll.
There will. So ideally, you poll twice. I think we're not planning necessarily to fund our own poll with district funding, but yeah, you would do a poll sometime in the fall to start weighing in on the mechanisms and amounts, and then you do it again in the spring, and you'd also focus more on messaging, so you'd understand what resonates with people and what doesn't. But, we'll have to, hopefully there'll be someone interested, externally with that.
If the elections were to result in 3 new board members who campaigned against any mill levy or driver bond, that was their thing, then that would stop all that stuff? You wouldn't have majority?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think that, ultimately, unless the board refers it to the ballot, then, there would be nothing on the ballot. So at that point, if it was made really clear that, the board members do not support, the majority of the board does not support local revenue measure, then yeah, I think we have to, just as much as a majority can say, we're definitely pushing forward. I would assume a board majority would say, well, we're never referring this to the ballot.
Yeah. And we would be, but we wanna be ready.
Yeah.
We wanna keep going and, so.
I don't say so.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that would be helpful about some really specific guidance from this board, because at least, if there's still a majority of people who will be interested in pushing this forward once, after November, then we could explain sort of how we're approaching this and why and what input, what direction we got board members had on it initially. If there are things that folks wanna add to it at that point, that's great, but I do think also, I don't know if somebody touched on this, but just sort of notifying our colleague municipalities that 2026 is Jeffco's year, and not to mean that no one else will go, but that it's very clear that we are planning to go.
Yeah, I will say also, and it is rumored that there's a group working on a statewide measure for 2026. And so we're paying attention to that. A statewide measure, there's something in here about 76.
On education funding.
I'm sorry, a statewide education, a K-12, it was 73, 76, 73, I'm not gonna say which one of those numbers.
It was one of the things they tried to do statewide.
Oh, the 73. And we've had multiple statewide ballot measures, as you guys know, over the last decade, and they've been very unsuccessful, but it is something I think we just need to pay attention to, so it's something I've been talking to other superintendents about.
Well, and in 2013, opposition to the statewide measure assisted 3 people in getting on the school.
Which is, yes,
But
and,
they're in different schedules.
yeah, so this would be 26 and 25 as the board majority election.
You're just saying that's what happened.
But that is what happened in 2013, okay, that's good to know, yeah, just historically. So, lots of moving parts, lots to think about, but it's a good step in the right direction and.
Also just sort of follow up to just see if the board wants to have this discussion publicly as a whole board, if there's a couple people who want to, start, I would encourage all of you to start thinking about that, as Daniel said, how do you define stakeholder and what, even in your own experience, your own election, like what are the campus stops and who are the people in the community that we should be involved early because they can be catalysts.
If Mary, if you and or another board member if 2 of you want to come with me, or join my association meetings with JCAA, JESPA, JCEA, to have this conversation, just so you can hear the context of that. I know those are important stakeholder groups in a campaign and just period, but I'm happy to have you guys join that. We did that one time with JESPA, Paula. So if that's of interest to people, I'm happy to have you guys join.
Yeah,
Part of those
definitely.
conversations with leadership.
Whether you two, actually.
So maybe Erin and Michelle, if you're interested, let Mary know and we can give you the dates. Happy to have you guys join me for that. And Brenna will be there too.
Dates for sure on that.
Thanks, Liz.
So I want to pull back up at the very beginning, you had a couple of requests, one of which was feedback, and just to check in on like, do you want to keep having conversations? That's it, right? Were there any others? Those were.
Yeah, I mean, do you feel good about these next steps? I know we also read it, like, we didn't get to the weeds on the next steps around like Danielle's questions, who are all the stakeholders? When do the polls happen?
That would
But
be
generally speaking, I think, do you feel like we're on the right track? Do you wanna join me for the association meetings next month?
Yeah, I think Erin and I will try to join you as well.
Okay,
Great. And what we suggested is maybe we have in the study session or whenever there's time, some discussion around stakeholders. So,
yeah, I mean, you guys could, the board can consider something like a statement of intent to signal to our county and city partners that are also taxing authorities that you're gonna do this in 26 or seriously considering it or exploring it. So if the board has an interest in making a statement like that this spring or this summer, Erin, do you have something to say, Erin?
Yeah, I wanted to just remind us that Leslie Dahlkemper came through and spoke with us about their intent to put something on the last round. So I think that was really thoughtful, and we had an opportunity to have discussion, so that we could be in support, but also to be building support with our county commissioners and our, I thought great communication modeling is what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, and we can
I think
add,
we could do some more stuff like that.
yeah, we can add to our timeline sort of like board or superintendent presentations to city councils and county commissioners.
Yeah.
Kind of divvy that up and divide it and get a common, once we get going, we will have like sort of here's what we're thinking, here's what we're doing. I think when she came, they were in active campaigning mode, so I don't think she was with staff.
Yeah, they were looking for an endorsement.
They were looking for an endorsement, so there'll be pros and cons to waiting until it's in campaign mode versus prior, so we can weigh all those things, but that's a great suggestion, we'll build that in there and things.
I also wanted to mention that at the last CAP meeting, the CAP committee went over bond language from Denver and Aurora and did a whole bunch of analysis of, what they liked, what they didn't like, and what their bells and whistles presentation looked like. So they're helping too. That's great.
this is really helpful.
Good.
Okay, so,
Thank you.
thank you Brenna for all the time and energy put into that too.
Yes, really well done, Brenna.
And Lisa for getting
You're such a good teacher. Did you teach her?
So I want to just raise up again, you'll see it in some of the follow-up of Lisa's request to consider next steps, process, who might be involved, in the stakeholder process. Okay.
You're volunteering.
Undetermined. And what I would ask, based on our earlier dialogue today, is if feed that feedback to Mary as the board president, so she can consolidate it and figure out the most effective plan of action to do all the dialogue, and work backwards. Yeah. So let's take a break. Let's take until 4:15. There's a lot, we're like, woo, I know. And then we're gonna wrap it, okay? Yes, we are.
What time are we ending? 4:45?
5 o'clock.
Get these into May 7th, May 29th, I will be there for 8 hours. So I'd like to add that meeting on May 9th, 12 to 2:30. And then I would propose an early start on May 29th because we do it typically in May, we do a mid-year superintendent check-in and we really need 90 minutes for that. So that's the request there.
The early starts are really hard.
Yeah,
Yeah, especially on Thursdays,
okay,
because that means my daughter has to walk on the base.
okay,
I can get a ride, I can try to figure it out, but like.
okay.
It's just harder. Can I ask really quick on March 13th?
Yeah.
I know you said that means well, either I think it's March or Sunday.
Yeah.
That starts with my water.
Oh,
It just looks really light.
yes, but we have and we can keep the Colorado Financial Adequacy Study. Of course, we public comment is getting longer. Like last month, we had almost an hour of public comment, so that pushed the meeting into almost 10 p.m. So I'm trying to keep it a little lighter, but also we need to make space for you all to have an executive session, and it could go an hour or longer on negotiations at the back end of the meeting. that's why I'm out.
I wanna talk in March about negotiations, just so we can kind of get your voice sooner rather than later, regarding where we're headed. The board just needs to kind of get.
And you were thinking of an executive session at the end afterwards?
Because we already have one at the beginning.
Oh, we already, that's not on there.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't put the exec sessions on here, but you will have an exec session that
There's
will,
an arbitration decision.
and you're looking at a property valuation.
So,
You won't have time before the meeting to do negotiations as well.
but you're thinking of 2 executive sessions, okay?
Yeah.
One before, and you said that should be on what? The
Arbitration
arbitration.
and the property valuation.
Arbitration. And then one after, on that.
And then one following the content.
I just wanna show you guys some numbers. Because I believe, given the time that we have scheduled for negotiations, that in March, that we need to get some, a bit of direction from the board, earlier rather than later.
Okay, so, the proposed early start then on May 7th, I know it's not, I think that's the Wednesday. Yeah, I'm out of here, I'm trying to figure it out, wait, okay, so, okay, because we have to have.
Be the first.
Okay, because also we're proposing the 20-minute dedicated public comment on the 7th because the 29th seems a bit late, in terms of where we'll be with negotiations, so we wanna make sure that the association is in session. Yeah, it's a little bit untraditional, but because of the way the meetings fall, it feels like if the association still have an opportunity to get in front of you all at the beginning of the month, that might be problematic. Okay, and then adding this meeting on May 9th, I previewed this with you guys, but does that work? Or can you let Jennifer know if it works? May 9th.
That's a Friday.
I have a graduation that I'm supposed to be at,
Okay,
like 3 o'clock maybe.
okay,
Yeah, Asbrook. I think it's Asbrook.
okay.
You may have to leave a little early, Erin, just to get there in time, park, and feel like you're settled in before the ceremony at 3. Because it looks like this would go till 2:30, maybe.
Right, and then, if you all wanna add other meetings for what you talked about
Yeah, I
today.
want to add a lot, too. I really want to get up to 97 meetings between now and the end of
You know, we had talked about, you know how I started reviewing for you your consent agenda and for the next meeting, and then kind of also this type of thing was like, what else is coming? Something else I've seen boards do and been a part of is like right after that, just kind of some, maybe not during your board updates, I've seen it happen in the formal meeting, where as part of board updates, it's a little bit like what you guys already do, which is I've done that, like you're telling your constituents how you engage in them, which is very perfect. You guys do a great job of that. But there's also a portion of those board updates, either during the formal updates or during the regular meeting, or sometimes I've seen boards do it in the study session, which is more informal, where you just talk about stuff. And you don't talk to me, and you don't talk to staff, but you talk to each other, where you can say things like, I've gotten feedback that people are concerned about X, Y, or Z, right? Are any of you hearing that same feedback? In that case, I can maybe chime in saying, oh, we're hearing that too, and here's what Renee's actually working on that, or you know, I've been concerned, I've been getting a lot of emails about choice process, or I've been and we could just put in even just 20 minutes or 15 minutes of like open dialogue about board constituent interactions, or just board or key initiative topics. Yeah, it's key initiative topics that we talked about last week. that you all just wanna like have a conversation about, because you can't necessarily be in a room. I mean, that, and if you need the time, you use it, and if you don't, but I have seen boards do that. Either at the beginning of a meeting, a study session, or at the end of a study session. Given your conversation earlier, I just wanna make that suggestion for you to think about. You know, I don't know, you have to decide right this moment, but.
Yeah, I'll send some notes from today in terms of what we heard in terms of next steps, and you guys can make decisions about what you wanna do. I think what I would then potentially recommend, based on, hearing that maybe May 29th, which I think is Thursday, at 3:30 PM might not be great, that we potentially move the executive session for the mid-year superintendent check-in to June 4th, where we have a little bit more space. And we do that right at the start of the meeting from 4:30 to 6, and then start the rest of the content. Folks are okay with that, then we can avoid that early start on May 29th.
Well, I think if we are gonna add a discussion to the study sessions, if you're doing that because of me, I would keep it on that Thursday. And then be able to start adding to the study sessions, the time for our discussions, I would suggest at the beginning, it's like putting the budget at the end, you know? So then June 4th and others, that first row would be the board discusses things, whatever we call them.
So not moving the executive session.
Oh, I'm just saying, maybe not, I guess the question is, are we going to add to the study session something? And if we are, then maybe we should not add the executive session and the discussion time to a study session. Keep it on the board.
Keep it on the
early-
29th.
Early start, figure it out, I'll figure it out.
Okay. Erin, I know those early starts are not good for you either, to pick up. Do you have a preference?
With advanced warning, I can probably figure something out.
Okay.
So are you okay if we leave the 29th where it starts at
Yeah.
3:30?
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll leave it as is then. Okay, I think that's
So are we adding the hour on this, or hour, however long this half hour, whatever? For our discussion?
that'll be up to you guys. Do you, are
I think we
you,
should decide.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I like it.
are you proposing, so let me just clarify what you're proposing so I make sure it's right. 30 minutes each study session, first agenda item.
Is it first or is it kind of at the end where you had talked about more like who do the?
My only advice to you, having worked with many boards over the course of my career, is that if you put it at the beginning, you gotta hold yourselves to your 30 minutes. Because it can very easily like lead into, your FAC chair coming and your presentations from whoever else is coming.
I'd rather do that than stick it on an envelope. It's like right now.
Well, I also, really for another idea too, I kind of like it because then whatever's discussed there, we just study a bunch of things. We have time to talk about that too.
That could be part of your open.
What if,
Other ones to the side.
well, what if you, and we can do better at that, and what if you tried it? One session you did the first, and then one you did the last, and then you made a decision.
Yes.
Okay.
Got it.
All right, we'll add that then,
Starting in March or not?
well, I would need to add it to the agenda right now, that we're about to publish, I can. But what I would, so I'm happy to do it, I would like for you guys to come up with a description that says what it is that you're doing. We can put some, if I can put basically a hold in there with some base language, and then if you guys can provide me something by Monday that says what you're doing. And I don't know if you want to, for this meeting on next week, if you want it at the beginning or the end, or if you just want to choose. Okay.
Are you asking for us
What do you
a
want to
very
call it?
That's what I'm
specific
trying to figure out.
description that includes this week's topics?
No, it's just like what is the what is the general?
Okay, like board
That should be
dialogue
helpful
on
to
current
have that.
topics.
Sure, I will call it board dialogue on
Randos.
current topic. But I do think it would be good though for you guys to hold yourselves accountable to what is this time to give like a little paragraph description. But for now, I will just call it board dialogue on current topics. I will put it at the first 30 minutes. I'll go do that right now while you guys are wrapping up. And then at the next meeting, we will do it at the end.
I'm gonna take it a step further. It was an action item from this morning. So you all saw one of your action items before you left the room, which is lovely. But I am gonna ask you to take that. Minuscule step later further, but it won't change the rest of it.
Okay, well, really quick, will you also add the update to Sean Boyd, to the weekly update?
And what you guys are, there was just an immediate inquiry from Sean Boyd that we're responding to, and that,
It's going to your board update, but I
It's going to
sent
your
you
board
board
update,
update, so now it's
so-
being
Change.
regarding
An update,
marked on,
on what?
personal matter.
I'm gonna move us forward.
Yeah.
We're good on the agendas.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. Okay. Here is what we're going to do. I want to wrap up by asking you all to seal up what you've heard today and what you've agreed to for action. Okay? So let me just give you a quick recap that ease you into remembering all the way back to this morning. We talked about team dynamics. We talked about several tools inside that, lenses that you can think about in terms of content versus process, a refresh on curfew. We looked really at your covenants. Which ones are you doing well? Which ones did you say you wanted to focus on in August? And which ones do you think need some practice based on where you're sitting as a board now? And then you had a pretty robust dialogue about what some of that looks like in action, and also what you want to expect from each other now. Partially what you expect from each other, partially what you expect from the role of the president in facilitating awareness and information sharing. After that, we talked a little bit about toolkit, some topics. There was good feedback on things for staff to consider in that toolkit, and then ask for you all to draft an opening intro of some kind that explains what it is, what it's about, etc. So I gave you the framework of what we covered before we got to the content. You tell me what you recall, what you're taking away as some action steps. Yes.
I have big comments on.
So I'm waiting for the minutes.
And I think I walked away with some like personal, things I want to do better. Which, you know, the routine awareness, pay good attention to things that I'm gonna try to do, and got some feedback on the way other board members are managing tasks, things I can try, and so I'm gonna try to put the action for me, dedicated time to review that is far enough in advance of meetings, but not so far, and just try to be really intentional about when those times are, and so to minimize my change and last minute things to help foster trust and transparency.
Is there anyone in the group that can be a bit of an accountability buddy for you?
When I'm going over it, I'll just shoot you an email and say, it's time, I'm going over my 10 or like 8.
Awesome, thanks.
And I had mentioned in the beginning that I really felt so ineffective, not on some of things the last few months. And so what I'm planning to do is reach out to everybody and just figure out again the best way of keeping up. I'd like to at least have some kind of weekly check-in, even if it's me saying anything you want to tell me, and that's it. Just so I feel that I know I've done it for everybody weekly.
You know, Mary and I meet weekly, and every time I meet with her, I'm like, are you hearing about any board interests or specific things? And So that would be helpful for our conversations too, because then you can be the liaison.
And I wanna ask the group, if Mary reaches out to you, are you all taking accountability to respond?
That's, I think I'm very responsive.
So, yeah, so I will, at least the first week, like next week, I will reach out to everybody, I'll send you an email, and I'll just say, what's the best way for me? I'm gonna shoot you a text and say, let me know if there's anything you have on your mind. And you can say nothing, or you can say, yes, we'll talk. Okay.
Can you shoot me a text?
Yes.
I know I missed that part of the text. Okay.
Yeah, but I can actually like text. Okay, so I'm gonna do a text, and just say anything you'd like to talk about, and you have in mind.
Great. Erin, you good with all this? Yep. I love it. We have a good communication system happening up there. Thank you. Okay. What else?
So I did hear earlier as part of the Hub and Spoke conversation, there was a request to look at how you all hold space for your dialogue in two ways. Number one was how can it fit into your current structure? You just talked that out, you've got a plan, which I love. I would ask a couple of still, somebody plus Mary, how do you want to facilitate that time? 30 minutes is gonna go by in a hot second. And you're gonna hold yourselves accountable for 30 minutes, and it's no one's job but yours to facilitate the dialogue. And so how might you want to do that?
You can flat out set an alarm on your phone and have it go off after 20 minutes so that we know we have 10 minutes to wrap it up.
But I think like the Christmas thing, which is a good one, is we can talk a lot. And if we get going on one topic and all of a sudden it's 10 minutes, I'm like, I have 3 more things. Like,
Well, part of my reaching out too can be like, is there something that you wanna?
That you know for sure you're gonna bring up in there.
Right, and so then I'll have a feeling going into the meeting, how many people wanna talk.
Yeah, I would say it would be very helpful for me to know if there's something specific or controversial or frustrating or, you know, not just sharing of good news that you're gonna feel.
But we need a little more information. And you don't even know that we're gonna need the information that's been told you.
It'd be helpful to know.
Sometimes we're not gonna know sometimes.
But yeah, if there's an opportunity for me to know, it would be helpful, and then I can also, if I can't get great staff people there, I can at least have a little bit of information to write something and not just be sitting there like.
but I do think I don't really think it will be a time test. I just want it to be our conversation.
Because I'm saying, what I'm saying is, I respect that, and I would request respect enough to at least tell me if you know something is gonna be coming into that conversation that I know.
Yeah, I see it being a lot of like feeling persons, like I'm anxious or concerned about this, and I don't know, aside from, and you might be able to say like, well, there's things in the works, and you're gonna get that data on that here. I mean, that's kind of what happened with the essay stuff, right? Like, okay, we're gonna, we know this is a thing, we know we're hearing from families, like, we're gonna talk about it. And that gave me the effect to go back and be like,
So funny, I'm not feeling, so I'm like, this is.
I know.
I'd be fine with whatever.
I know.
So I would offer, I'll offer a couple tools to Mary, but I wanna just clear out, is there someone who will go offline with Mary to just work through the initial, like she's gonna collect information. You could choose to do a quick, like, let's just check our agenda at the beginning of the 30 minutes. Here's the topics that I have. How much time do we wanna take on each, like, there's a number of things you could do. The other half of that conversation that y'all made was just, what's the process? Like, how do we know when we want to come together with a meeting and add a meeting and make that happen? And I think there's a process, of course, but the how do you know, it's the exercising of judgment that it's time. And I think it could be a worthwhile conversation for a couple of you to brainstorm on that and have that in your next dialogue.
Well, and when are we in the middle of the conversation and the alarm goes off and it needs to continue? You know, because it's an important thing that we are discussing. That makes me worried.
Well, as long as everybody feels that if it is important, and a lot of important things come up, that we know that might extend the meeting.
Well, and that might be like, even if we decide that most of the time the beginning of the meeting is great, if there's a biggie coming up, we might say, you know what, let's just put this at the end because we want to be able to go later.
Do you know what else we could do that's similar to public comment, right? The first hour is public comment, and if there's more than an hour, it goes to the end. You could say the first 30 minutes, and we think it's worthwhile, and at the end, we all will be like,
It's not that important.
but we can say that. But we can,
I also
we can have that, go ahead, Erin.
I also want to throw in, if we do have to cut off conversation, which I think has to happen from time to time, if we could give ourselves, each of us, 2 minutes to just jot down somewhere or type somewhere what our thought process is in the moment so that it's easy for us to pick it up when we have to come back around to the conversation and pick it up. And also as a concrete way to say, this is us stopping this conversation and transitioning to something else. Just to have a minute or two intentionally to capture where our own individual thoughts are on a particular issue so that we can pick it up when we have more time to discuss it.
Erin, I think that's a great suggestion to just give you guys a minute. I mean, two things that I think could be helpful is like for you guys to think about your note-taking structures during meetings so that you have something to reference back to, especially if we continue the conversation like 3 hours later after a lot of content in between. And then the other thing I would just ask you guys, if you're gonna spend this time in your meeting, is to please read your weekly update, because there may be things in there that answer your questions. And I can have it up, but then I'm like scrambling for where was it? I look backwards.
Paul's gonna make sure I do that.
Yeah, so please read your weekly update, and then there may be things in there that you wanna add into this time to have more conversation about as well. But it also might be able to answer some of your questions.
I have one quick update. So Ed is pretty locked into his time on next week, so we can do yours after his 30 minutes, if that's okay with everybody.
Let's do the end for the first try.
Okay, well, we'll put it in a second, if that's okay.
I'm still gonna ask for one person to partner with Mary in your job, and if you all feel like the process is locked down, that's great, otherwise.
Talk to everybody, and yes, I'll.
Okay, so then the other thing I'm gonna ask you to do is as you guys are trying this out, observe the process, figure out where there's some room to keep it all in. Okay. All right, thank you. What else came up for you? Anything else that you heard or that you have down as an action that you're taking away? Good. Erin?
Maybe looking at your notes.
I'm gonna try to stay healthier so that I can be in person with you, because truly it's hard to stay engaged virtually.
Yeah. For 6 hours.
But I think remembering to take care of my health, it will be something I will implement. And also, maybe Michelle, once Paul has reached out to you, you can kick me with a text message.
Your turn.
Yeah, we'll just in a circle. So that I read earlier and can respond earlier.
Thank you, Erin. Okay. The other thing that we talked about briefly, and I'm just gonna raise it up for you again, and this isn't a you guys thing, this is an everyone in life thing right now. We are all jumping way up that assumption ladder really fast in the world, right? Things are happening, we're taking the information, including how we're feeling, and we're drawing a conclusion before we're checking the information. And so I would encourage you to just sit with that for a bit and think about when it's happening for you. It happens for me. Literally, it's a pretty regular thing, right? Because it's how our brains are wired. Find out when it's happening inside this dynamic and what you can do to check your assumptions. Okay? All right. With that, we have a couple more quick things. I want to talk for just a minute about your feedback, observer feedback, and give you a chance to share. And here's what I would say. You don't have to share everything you may have written. I would love for you to give your sheet to the person. But I do want you to take a minute and just highlight from there that you feel. You'll give it to her next time you see her. So you can take a minute and highlight something from here. Okay? So who wants to start us off? Wait, this is sharing out what you've hopefully been observing about your secret person today, your director. Who wants to start?
I will start. I haven't finished writing this. But I have Michelle. And the thing that I noticed about her today is she's incredibly supportive of other board members when they express their personal feelings. She validates it. She, even to the point of whatever she can do, to help and prevent that issue or that scenario.
My thing I have is for you, Erin. That I really appreciated the fact that you are still very much in touch with what it's like to be recently new on the board, and to come in with here's, now that I've got a year in, but I also clearly remember being brand new, here's what we need to do for the people coming in after. Because it's very easy to forget, actually, after a few years, just how overwhelming it is. And I really appreciated your suggestion that we write down our thoughts if the discussion's cut off. I mean, it's such a concrete thing, and it really, I think, will make a big difference.
I have Paula, and I put that it was helpful when you were honest in the ways that you were feeling and thinking about things. So I think that was both helpful for us to be able to have that conversation, and will be a good quality.
Erin, you want me to go? I can't tell you. Okay. I had Danielle, and I really appreciate your willingness to speak up, and that you, with community and creative such a leadership to a lot of the work you do, and that you put yourself in positions where you might be a minority voice, and you have the willingness to speak up and allow yourself.
So that you can guess that I have married. And I just want to lift up how grateful I am for Mary thinking about the future implications of our current decisions, particularly the ones that, the impact might not come or the ongoing decision process might happen after new people are on the board, or maybe none of the five of us is here. So I'm grateful that Mary is asking questions about what happens if, something changes in the future, particularly around the mill levy override conversation that we had. And I think that's just excellent stewardship modeling for all of us holding these roles. The institution lasts much longer than any of us who are holding the positions that we're in right now. So that forward thinking I think is really, really valuable and important.
Thank you. Did everyone go? Just my ask of you, it's an opportunity you are not often afforded to be able to give some really direct, meaningful feedback to each other. So if you've not, I would encourage you to finish completing it and hand it off, so that on the hard days, and there are those days, you'll have a chance to just remember what is it that you're bringing into the group that's being noticed and raising the level of the work that you're doing, because it matters. Okay, here's my last ask of you. At the very beginning, I asked you to check in with how you were doing, how you were feeling, how you wanted to show up. I want you to check back. You don't have to share out, but I want you to take a minute and see how you did against what you said you wanted to do today. you to take a minute and think about how you roll this forward. So what about it worked? Maybe you showed up exactly the way you were hoping to, or you leaned into whatever the behavior was that you wanted to be practicing today. Maybe it went according to plan, maybe it did not. But taking a minute with all of that and thinking about how you might want to do more of it, less of it, different next time. Okay? Let's keep focusing on the process of how you're working together. Because the content is moving, right? Content's moving, but the more you can just think through how you're doing it individually and collectively, the better the outcome is on the content. Okay. With that, anyone have any closing words they would like to share? You do not have to. I don't want to cut you off if you have anything you want to say. Appreciate it.
I want to say that I'm super grateful for all of the staff who supported me being remote today at the last minute and the turnaround and the effort that went into that. I know that that's not easy and that it's often frustrating, and I'm just really grateful for the support and for the ability to participate today.